Any questions to Josh? No, we're not going to Burning Man tonight. But maybe next year. Oh.
Is it working? Okay, great. I did have a question about the code of conduct aspect of the symbolic paradigm. So there is this notion that in some ways technology itself is very apolitical and apolitical at the same time, in which by political we mean that we place a bit of our policies and our standards, and how we program is defined by how we infer logic and process things. And so I guess the question I have with regards to the code of conduct is, whose code of conduct is part of this paradigm? It is meant to be open, so my assumption is eventually it should be open to everyone. But I guess for the initial phase, what is the definition of conduct?
I think we have to define certain guiding principles or values that define who we are. So any kind of culture or society, whether it's implicit or explicit, there is this set of values. So when we design our ecosystem, we basically define these values, but these values must evolve because that's what humans do. We evolve. So I think the best way to approach it in our mind is using some kind of delegated proof of stake system where we create a council of elders or certain sage. This could be spiritual leaders, or it could be ethicists or certain elders of large church community. They partake in our ecosystem, and then they help define these guiding principles, but it's not set on stone. It must evolve. So there's got to be some kind of voting system based on their stake, and then it constantly gets updated.
I have watched with fascination the concepts of decentralization throughout the day, but I've noticed, or it seems to be inferred, that decentralization equals democratization, which seems to be also inferring moralization. And democratization and morals are not necessarily tied. The general belief that the majority is always right has been disproven time and time and time again. We've seen the majority act in the disinterest of its own populations and others around it for history, for all of human history. So looking at decentralization and voting constructs to reinforce what is right and wrong, also given that we are likely to attract others of a like mind as ourselves, I'm thinking that decentralization by default does not mean a moral action. So I'm wondering how you ensure that.
Yeah, so I don't know what morality is, but I know what is good and what is essentially bad for humanity. For example, I mean, like we could study all major religions, and if you boil down their principles, it comes down to very simple, I would say, a value system. One is love your neighbors, or be compassionate to other people. I mean, these are very simple stuff. We don't have to make it too complicated. We could make it as general as it can be, and it could just stay there. I think once we start getting into morality, then I think we're adding a lot of complication into it, and I think the system has to be flexible enough to allow those type of complexity based on situation. I think the context is why so important. But I think the highest level, the calling, what is good for humanity, I think that simple truth cannot be jeopardized. Meaning when we design an AI system, we cannot let the system to become a Skynet and ultimately destroy us. That is against good. That is against humanity. So we start with that very simple statement. Let's be good to others. Let's be good to ourselves. And then the rest can kind of come, or let's say, more refined from there.
Can you hear me? I'm going to ask Paul, because earlier when you finished, you didn't have enough time to go through Q&A, and we promised when Josh is going to come up. Would you mind come up on stage? Because some people, they had some questions to Paul. And if you don't mind, bring your two geniuses with you there, the brains behind the mind, or some of the brains behind the mind. We have other brains here. Questions from the audience to Paul Lee, who was earlier here. I remember a few hands up. Please don't be shy. If you don't have any questions, that would have been the best workout that these guys have ever had. Oh, there's a question over there.
I'm just forming the question as I'm speaking now, but I guess I've found that like I'm an artist type person, and I guess that makes me right-brained. This whole spirituality notion and emotion and creativity and all of that stuff, I don't find it exists in the artificial intelligence industry enough. And this is actually the first talk that I heard that brings forth that idea. Do you find a lot of pushback on this notion, or is it well accepted? Yeah, sorry, question for Josh, yeah.
We're very new to the public right now, so I haven't particularly experienced any major pushback. Maybe it's because people are kind of holding back. I fully expect that people will have a hostile reaction to this, because I think there's a big and real disconnect between hard science engineering community versus spirituality. It's real, and it's scary, and I think it's very disheartening, in my opinion. I mean, I'm an engineer, I'm a technologist, I'm a financier, I'm a scientist, but I'm also a yogi, and I'm a meditator. I dance. These are important qualities in life, and that's what reality is. But somehow we reached our own insane conclusion, thinking that there's got to be separate. Art has to be separate from science. Engineering has to be separate from philosophy. I ultimately disagree with that. I think they need to be combined. It's almost like when you look at a child, okay? A child could be, let's say, 3-year-old son. And you see that child to become certain, let's say, chess master or go master. And you drive and train the child to be that. Let's say a couple years later, the child became the world's go master or chess master. But let's say that person doesn't understand ethics. That person does not understand how to relate to other people. That person does not understand how to appreciate nature, how to appreciate good manner. There's something wrong with that person. That is not intelligent, in my opinion. You cannot call that intelligent person. Same thing, when we say AI or artificial intelligence, that intelligence actually implies certain quality that is intrinsically nature-like. It cannot be just like a machine, or it cannot be just like a pure algorithmic logic. There's got to be an emotional connection. There's got to be a appreciation for the surrounding. And how do we factor that into our overall AI system? I don't have an answer. We have an attempt. We have a prototype. We're trying. We're way out there at the forefront. We fully expect that people will ridicule us, make fun of us. But it's my mission to say that it is important stuff, because that's who we are.